A reading from the Gospel of John. The Passover of the Jews was near, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. In the temple he found people selling cattle, sheep, and doves, and the money changers seated at their tables. Making a whip of cords, he drove all of them out of the temple, both the sheep and the cattle. He also poured out the coins of the money changers and overturned their tables. He told those who were selling the doves, "Take these things out of here. Stop making my Father's house a marketplace." His disciples remembered that it was written, "Zeal for your house will consume me." The Jews then said to Jesus, "What sign can you show us for doing this?" Jesus answered them, "Destroy the temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up." The Jews then said, "The temple has been under construction for 46 years, and you will raise it up in 3 days?" But he was speaking of the temple of his body. After he was raised from the dead, the disciples remembered that he had said this, and they believed in the word that Jesus had spoken. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Saxophone sigh. I heard that name for the first time just a few days ago. Saxophone sigh. Maybe you've heard his name too. Sy is a 23-year-old sailor with the Royal Thai Navy's Air and Coastal Defense Command. On Tuesday, Sy and his fellow sailors responded to a distress call from the Andaman Sea. It's off the coast of Thailand, and the call detailed the capsizing of a boat that was starting to fall beneath the waves. "It's on fire," the report said. "Fuel is in the water, the boat's going down, 8 members of the crew are hanging on." By the time the Thai Navy arrived at the scene, the crew members of the stricken vessel had already been rescued by a ship in the area. No loss of life. All that was left for the Navy to do was secure the area from scavengers and contain the fuel spillage. But that's when Sy noticed the cats. Kittens, actually. 4 of them. All of them huddled together on the hull of the overturned vessel with no options, with nowhere to go. Sy just jumped into the sea with his pants on, a fellow sailor would later note. He swam 20 meters in the chop. He climbed on the fishing boat with the fire getting closer, and he found a way to bring all the cats back. The iconic image from the rescue shows that determined 23-year-old sailor pushing through the water with one of the kittens clinging to the sailor's life vest. When asked about his courageous action out on the sea, Sy used words like training, duty, responsibility. Well, from my vantage point, Saxophone Sy exhibited zeal. Zeal, it's not a word we use in everyday speech anymore. Its heyday in the English-speaking world was more than 200 years ago. The Oxford Dictionary will define zeal as great energy, or, in the alternative, enthusiasm in pursuit of a cause or an objective. These days, we might use the word passion as a synonym for zeal, a stand-in, although I don't think passion is quite strong enough. Passion has you turning your boat toward the wreckage to pluck survivors out of the water, maybe from a safe distance. Zeal, on the other hand, has you in the water, wading through the fuel and the flames so that you can make sure the sea-soaked cream tabby cats get home too. The biblical languages, Hebrew and Greek, feature words that our Anglo ears hear as zeal or zealous a scant 34 times in the Old and New Testaments. 2 Kings and Isaiah describe God, for example, as having zeal for the remnant of Israel. Great passion in pursuing the cause of a beloved people. The prophet Elijah, on the other hand, demonstrates zeal for the Lord in his showdown with the priest of Baal on Mount Carmel. In the letter to the Romans, Paul tells the church, do not lag in zeal. Be ardent in spirit. Serve the Lord. Coach Sweeney, who runs that little football program up the interstate a bit, might define zeal as being all in. Although Ohio State fans may disagree. Zeal. On the third Sunday of Lent, with words like temptation and comfort zone already in our Lenten word banks, we now turn our attention to the word zeal. Zeal. Even saying it seems edgy. As one scholar notes, it's like standing on the thin line that separates passion from madness, true vision from vain ambition. Zeal for your house consumes me. While the original phrase is from Psalm 69, it appears in the Johannine Gospel text this morning. In fact, the disciples have it on their lips as they watch Jesus make a mess of the temple courtyard. Zeal for your house consumes me. It's on full display in Jerusalem today. Flipping the tables is noted in all four of the Gospels. In Matthew, Mark, and Luke, the temple episode arrives near the end of Jesus' ministry. But here in John's Gospel, it's very near the beginning. Hold on to that thought because we'll come back to it. In all the Gospel accounts, we encounter a rabbi who acts quite differently than our domesticated Sunday school Jesus. Here he seems unhinged, enraged, as he should be. Jewish law prescribes a Passover pilgrimage to Jerusalem if the body is able. Jesus is among the thousands, perhaps tens of thousands or more pilgrims who are converging on the temple for the Passover. It's still under construction, this second rendition of the temple. And it's not only the center of Jewish spiritual life, it is a place of commerce, politics, gossip, the exchange of information. Now, the Passover feast requires a ritual sacrifice from the pilgrims who are converging at the Temple Mount and its courtyards. Now, you could buy your lamb right there if you wanted to. A visit to the temple also requires payment of the temple tax. And because Roman currency is unclean and unlawful, you would exchange it for a sanctuary currency, a shekel. Hence, all the money changers at that place. But the gospel texts agree when Jesus arrives, he explodes at the sight of all of it. He fashions an improvised whip. He yells until his throat is raw. Animals scatter from the sacred nooks and crannies of that place. Tables are flipped. Coins and feathers are tossed in the air. How dare you turn my Father's house into a market, Jesus exclaims, barking at merchants and money changers as the pilgrims look on. He is consumed by zeal. The disciples? Well, their stomachs are probably churning with anxiety. Remember this, at least according to John's telling of the story, is early in Jesus' public ministry. Early in the disciples' walks with Jesus. What have we gotten ourselves into with this guy? I, for one, think that John's timing here, this early reporting of the temple incident, is significant. Because Jesus seems to be signaling to the people right at the start of his ministry, God's not confined to this building. It's rituals. It's sacrifices. Cling to me, Jesus seems to be saying early in his ministry, and I'll show you the way out of here. I will show you a better way. We find Jesus bent out of shape today because the ritual system at the temple has become exploitative. It's corrupt. It's taking advantage of the very people it's supposed to serve. Many of the pilgrims who bring their prize lambs and doves to the temple will soon discover that the rules have changed. If one of the temple officials deems your lamb as too scrawny or too young or too old or just unclean, well, sorry, you'll have to buy another or step away. Your pilgrimage is over. And here's the thing, homegrown sacrifices are never going to be good enough. Many people are turned away. Temple life no longer brings people together to worship God. It separates them and excludes them, divides them and diminishes them. This ship is sinking, which is why Jesus will have none of it. His zeal is poured out for the people of God, not the grandeur of the building or the tidiness of the ritual. We are the cause of Jesus. We're the cause of Christ. So where there is hatred, where there's divisiveness, where there's manipulation, where there's corruption, where there's grief, where there's fear, where there's grave suffering, love shows up, flipping the tables if necessary, so that we can live fully and then care deeply for God's beloved ones. That's the Fonsai. It's a name I won't forget. Passion has you turning your boat toward the wreckage to pluck survivors out of the water. At a safe distance, of course. But zeal has you in it, wading through the danger so that all might be saved. Jesus meets us in the water and then raises us from its peril. Sometimes he'll call us to jump back in.